Worldview with Brock Lawley and Rondell Jordan.
The United States have an interest in controlling the world. And, even as a citizen, I love my country. Of course, I'm blessed to be here. I would say that 1,000 times. We are blessed to be American. But I also like to look at it from outside from the other person's point of view too, from the outside of the box view as well. And I know that my country, as a superpower, has, intelligence, has, manipulation, corruption, position themselves to be able to benefit from the world as best as possible. So, there is some things that we've done that are not going to be a good thing in other countries' minds. We have weapons deals that went bad in Iran. We support Israel, and yet people who are Palestinians or support the Palestinians are going to take a position against us because of what we do and what we support. So there will not be everybody in this world that's going to like what we're doing. And I'm going to also look at why is it that they don't like it, or why is it that they don't, want to attack us or want to. And then I think if we're going to create a solution, we have to acknowledge their concerns. We have to acknowledge whatever their point of view is. Otherwise, we're going to constantly. When people are not acknowledged, when people are not communicated to, then that's when it gets aggressive. They get angry, they get passionate, and then they start trying to think of ways to get your attention in other ways,
Rondell, it's not that what you're saying isn't true, but the problem I always have with this kind of conversation is that it's all had with this sort of moral equivalency. So, first of all, you're like, well, why don't they like us? This sort of ever-looming question, why do they attack New York City? Why do they lash out at the West? Why? I got to tell you, I'm of the camp that just sounds like capitulation.
We have to really look at ourselves as Americans. Like, I want to be the best country on the planet, but I want to see, as a citizen, I want to see wisdom and care in my leaders rather than motivation of money, attention, and power. You know what I mean? I want to see wise leaders in the Congress, in the House of Republicans, in the president's cabinet, and I want to see our country, exhibit to the world a demonstration of greatness constantly in the way we perform in athletics, in the way we perform as a country in the legal system. It just I want to be a well-running country. Do I want to have bases all over the world? I don't know. Yeah. As a citizen of the United States, I would say, I would like to be able to know what's going on, make sure we're safe, but is it right to have a basin everywhere in the world? That's debatable.
It is debatable. Rondell, I do agree with you. I mean, I like your sentiment. I want to be a good country, too. I think we have the mechanisms. I think we're a unique nation in that we have the mechanism we have for a long time at least. To have that self-improvement within our democratic system, it might be slower than some people might think, or it should be. It might be sometimes a painstaking, glacier-moving type pace. But we have that in America. I'm very leery of this sort of pie-in-the-sky kind of sentiment where we're like, we shouldn't have bases all over the place. Who is America? Well, the truth is that the realities in the world is that there is evil. Whether America is squeaky clean, whether America has clean hands all the time, anybody who says they do, no, I do not. No, and I've seen enough behind the curtain. In fact, the irony, of course, is that I'm incredibly skeptical and very suspicious of the American government. But that doesn't mean that in my mind I delude myself into thinking that this is not a very dangerous world.
If you feel that way, then why is it difficult to see that other people outside of the world, outside the country, feel the same way.
Well, it's not difficult for me, but in my mind, there's pervading levels of evil. For example, I think I'm just like you. America is nowhere close to its best self, and I like what you said. As Americans, that should be always what we strive for, to continuously improve, continuously be a better country, bringing more peace and prosperity to everybody on the globe. That is certainly the goal. It should always be the goal of the United States. But by no means, even with all my suspicions and aggravations at my own government, there's no comparing the United States of America to Iran, who, as we speak, just made some Christian convert to Islam and then lopped off his head in public just yesterday. They have it on a YouTube video. I mean, my problem with these conversations is you can't compare these things on an equal pedestal. There is real, profound, bloodthirsty evil on this earth, and somebody with a strong sword that is good has to be willing to beat it back. That's just a reality of life.
But that's a reality of life, like you just said, man. It's a reality of life everywhere. You know, a young man just got shot in the head, you know, down in Florida because the man next to him felt as though his music was too loud, you know. And so, you know, people, you know, there's evil everywhere. People die everywhere. And there's crazy things that happen in all over the world, you know. So, you know, one incident in Iran.
What you're describing is horrendous. And what you're describing, I assume, is the racial tensions of the United States, which are very, very real. But, Rundell, we're talking about a culture, an entire culture that beats their women, that beheads people in the street, that has profound human rights violations that baffle the mind, that castrate their own children. There's no comparing the two.
But that happens everywhere. I was reading an article in Brazil where, you know, they have inhumane prisons down there, and, you know, craziest things is happening there. Crazy things is happening in America. It's stuff going on that can be blown out of proportion.
Rundell, it's not blown out of proportion. It's not blown out of proportion. It's an endemic cultural cancer. It's a cult. It's a cult that the West has to become very aware of, and it's not going away. It doesn't matter if we stick our hands in our ears.
I'm not really pro-Iran, but I'm not anti-Iran. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know enough about the lifestyle in Iran. I would be interested in speaking to someone from Iran to ask them and get their point of view of, you know, the lifestyle in Iran, the future, and how they feel about the past and whatnot, and even about America and our interactions from their point of view. That would be, you know,
I would totally enjoy that conversation too, because you and I have that same curiosity. But I'm not indicting Iran. I'm talking about radical Islam at large, and its massive amounts of influence in a very, very corrosive way. And there's no comparing. You cannot compare that to some
radical Islam really took off with the language that Bush was using towards.
No, blame America first, Rundell. Radical Islam was a problem long before. Radical Islam took place when Hagar left in the Old Testament. Radical Islam is as old as time.
I said took off, meaning like it's been a movement, man. It's been like the drum is beating, boom, 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 boom. It's just we've had what they call the Arabic Spring ever since then. I mean, think about how many of those government systems have fallen in such a short period of time. How many Muslim nations have been invaded by the West in a short period of time? You think about it. So from their point of view, they feel like the way things are manifesting, way things look on a map, is it looks like we're under fire. We're under fire. If that's not the case, then we need someone who will advocate that that's not the case and say, here's why.
You're operating under the premise that would even matter to them. They're not interested in that. They're interested in conversion. They're interested in conversion by the sword. They're not interested in sitting down and rationally discussing things That's not what they're interested in.
They get radical against America when they've been disenfranchised or dead wrong by the West. So when they look at their lives, if they look at their country and it's been, it's in turmoil, and they blame the West for it, that's the reason why they volunteer and they run all around the country trying to destroy America by just continuing to have wars, so that we would be stuck into this spending spree. You know what I mean? Everybody knows that if they can break us economically, that's how you take down this great nation, is through economics. That's how Rome. If we can't afford the Ottoman Empire, all of those great empires that fell before us, they fell because they overexerted their military. And they spend
no doubt about it. And you're spot on right about the strategy too. I think that's exactly the strategy. It's it's death by 1,000 cuts, and I think that's exactly what's happening. However, I do not think in any way, shape, or form that this is some sort of like benign situation. You brought up an interesting point, and I've been curious about this my whole life. Here you have, there's these disenfranchised people. Some of these villages I've been in Iraq, the economic situation was so abysmal, you wouldn't even believe it. And I saw similar things when I was in Mexico. I saw similar things when I was in South America. I've seen similar things all over the world when you have very, 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 very isolated power, and you have all this concentrated wealth by these like either families or kind of coups and so on and so forth. But this is the thing I have an issue with. So you're living in some horrible, hut in Afghanistan, and you're eating sand sandwiches, and your little tribal leader's telling you that the whole reason your life sucks is because America, America, America. Meanwhile, your country and the surrounding countries are drowning in oil wealth, all of which is used and funneled to the Taliban to do heinous things and to wreak havoc, not to build, not to create, not to enhance the plight of man and the situation of man, but rather to spew hatred and to teach your children every single day that you ought to hate the great and little Satan with all your might. Now, here's the problem I have with this scenario. You can say, this is the big, great, evil West, and that's the reason that you suck. But I would argue that that little tribal leader or that little Taliban leader or that little mosque leader is whispering all that bile into your mind. I would argue that he's just distracting you from your real problem, which is that poisonous ideology that has created generation after generation after generation of poverty. And Rendell, this is a point of passion of mine. I personally think that in America, the African-American culture is under the same exact trance. Year after year, education is abysmal. Year after year, economic opportunities are horrible. Year after year, the same leaders tell these people, it's this great, evil, white, conservative guy who's keeping you down. Meanwhile, the people in power, the people writing the policies, the people moving the chips on the chessboard, they're all Democrats. But, as long as you give them that boogeyman to hate and turn all of that aggression and anger towards somebody who really isn't even their problem, then nobody ever bothers to look around and say, hey, maybe you're my problem. You're the guy making the financial decisions. You're the guy creating these environments. And that's the same thing. I feel like the same muddle happens. Hate Israel, hate America. How about we do this? How about we invest in science instead of hating Israel? How about we invest in hospitals instead of hating Israel? How about we invest in business, the things that help their people?
Let me say it as simply as I can. Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency. In fact, since taking office, this has been the administration that's prosecuted more whistleblowers in 2 years than in the preceding 40 years. It meets with lobbyists across the street from the White House so they don't have to disclose they're meeting with lobbyists. And, this is true, censored nearly 200 pages of internal emails about their efforts to make government more transparent.
President Obama received an award for transparency Monday.
That meeting was completely closed to members of the media.
Antidote on Facebook and Twitter. À Broclo les productions.